culpa de enamorarte y que hayan jugado con tus sentimientos. Ríe y vive, que ahora empieza una nueva vida que nos espera. Ríe.
¿Cómo evitarlo? Tú corres por mis venas.
Eres la rosa más bella, mi alma es toda tuya.
Olvida eso, de verdad te lo pido. Es que yo soy tuyo, cuerpo y alma, cuerpo y mente.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Hear Me Out. We're having a special episode today where I am now gonna be calmer than usual because it's actually a really chill, special, and I'm liking this conversation. This is part 2 of a two-parter I'm having with
Christian
of the show The Emperor's Mocha.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And we've been talking about what do you want to say? What have we been talking about?
We've been talking about the kind of shared struggle and cultural exchange of the Amerindians. I can't pronounce this word.
It's all good, don't worry.
And the African diaspora in the Caribbean and North America, talking about how there is a concerted effort to make this connection and the cultural heritage that both countries share and the exchange that both countries and people share kind of not exist in different countries like Mexico and Brazil. In the Caribbean's kind of erasing the idea that the Latinos exist.
Yeah.
And in Latin America, kind of erasing the shared African ancestry and DNA that is in pretty much a lot of the Latinas all over the continent. So yeah, that's the thesis of the episode, topic of the episode.
Because we're on a good flow, I want to continue just the same format we've been doing. So I noticed your idea. So a lot of stuff I'm gonna leave it to you speaking on this. But
all right,
for anyone any people that are listening for the first time, just to this episode, just letting you guys know, you can find Christian's episode on YouTube, right?
Yeah. So the Emperor's Mocha YouTube. It's gonna be
you can find part 1, and I think also is it gonna be also part 2. Or
yeah,
we're both gonna post it on our stuff. So part 1 will probably also be on mine too on Spotify if that's cool. But yeah. But so continuing, we were at the part where we're at my part where we can talk about son music, salsa music, and Nueva Trova. I just explained about Nueva Trova, right?
Yeah.
I wish I give you a little more songs. There's just one song called Casas de Cartón, which is by a Venezuelan group. A lot of Venezuelan musicians recently we've been talking about off and on the show, but they're called Los Guarauao. And another Nueva Trova group, Nueva Canción, they made a song called Casas de Cartón, which means the houses of cardboard. And the lyrics, they're not even politically charged to make you angry. It's a sad song. It sounds, when you hear it, it sounds like a lullaby. I'd say it's more similar to, the European guitar music, right? Compared to anything with you'd hear indigenous influence or African music. But I'd say if anything, the melody sounds very West African style, scale, but the lyrics are just simple. It's just, how sad is it to see my own people in the cardboard houses? What will happen when the rain comes? Where will they live? Because it'll get soggy and melt away, right? Those songs banned, you would get killed for that. And
when did this song come out?
It came out, I believe, close to the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember it was in the height of the civil wars in Latin America. So, yeah, it would be around that time. And Los Guarauaos are not a modern group. They're not for this age, but they're kind of new enough for people to still remember,
Yeah.
But no, yeah. Then a lot of Nueva Canción got bigger in Cuba, in a more positive way, because that was during the Cuban Revolution. After that, when the socialist communist government was there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of arts that was specifically directed in support of the Cuban government was created, and Nueva Canción was built up more and more, which is mainly headlined by this one musician. Wow, now I'm regretting. I should have put more songs. Damn.
I have almost the carton of
Casas de Cartón,
yeah, I have that one.
Oh, if you want to play that right now before I continue, that'd be pretty cool.
Let me find it.
Yeah, and we could play for a little bit and then bring it down. We could talk a little bit during that time. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna. This is Casa de Carton.
By Los Guaraguao.
Se oye la lluvia en los techos de cartón. Qué triste vive mi gente
Is this in Spanish?
en
No, I
las
wish I did. My
casas
dad
de
never taught me. I don't know why.
cartón.
No, this song's basically like saying. Actually, wait. How about we break it down so I can explain it? Yeah.
Viene bajando el obrero.
I was about to talk to Christian about like the meaning behind the song, and like I said, right now they're talking about people suffering. Like my people are suffering right now. And they just keep on saying like, look at all the people that are suffering. They're going through so much poverty, so much like pain. And like look at, and then it says, look what started the suffering. And it's supposed to be this calming protest song, but it just created so much anger from governments that wanted to oppress their own people, oppress the indigenous, oppress the poor, and of course oppress the African population. But in Central America, like you said, with in the previous part with like the paper genocide,
Yeah.
they were just basically written off. You know,
Oh, really?
they were like, when you go to Central America, except for like specific countries, maybe some parts of, I believe, Nicaragua and Honduras, and obviously Panama,
Yeah.
you won't really hear people talking about black people. In El Salvador, not at all, you know?
Interesting.
They will say, oh yeah, tengo like como pelo colochito, like I have like curly hair, but sometimes they'll just bring it to being Spaniard, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting.
I know. But yeah, it's almost all but gone there. But yeah, this music really pissed off the government. But yeah, like Nueva Canción was very popular. Cuba, like I said, it got popularized even more and more mainstream because this guy, Silvio Rodriguez, he's not the guy singing this, he's just another Nueva Canción singer. His music was kind of seen as like the Latinos' John Lennon, but John Lennon, you know,
Yeah.
hippie John Lennon type
Yeah.
stuff, you know? But again, some songs were love songs, some songs were love songs to the government. Some were in protest of like social unrest in different parts of Latin America. And he's still alive to this day, actually. He's still chilling in Cuba. But yeah, no, he was probably the forefront runner of Nueva Canción. But going back to like, I'd say like music that's like connected with like African rhythm with indigenous influence and like, you know, the European music theory, right? Like I said, it goes back to the salsa. And I think I'm gonna talk over this one, but if you wanna show this song, this one that always comes to me is gonna be again about El Salvador. That's my focus of like study.
Yeah.
But there's a song called El Padre Antonio y su monaguillo. Wow, I cannot pronounce it. Su monaguillo Andres, which means Father Anthony and his altar server named Andres. And that song, again, during the 1980s, you couldn't really specifically say certain things in protest, especially if you live in Latin America, right? But this song, it talks about the killing of a priest in El Salvador, right? During the time, like, at this point, most of Latin America was majority Catholic, right?
Yeah.
And as we know, not for very good beginnings, right?
Yep.
But that being said, eventually people assimilated, and it became a very big part of Latino culture. To this day, you know, like a lot of things we do is based off Catholic tradition now, and people saw priests as sometimes higher than the government, you know, and from priests that were usually Jesuit or priests that didn't just study at seminaries but also went to universities to study like political theory or even science. Those Jesuits and like more like post-secondary educated priests that weren't in seminaries, they started realizing a lot about how this region of people came to be Christian and Catholic. And they struggle to balance their way of like, trying to spread the word of God while also understanding that like this is a religion that was installed here to oppress a people, But through that created a new thought of, I guess, like Christian theology called liberation theology. And this has been seen, it can be, if you talk to someone that's Christian, I wouldn't say I'm specifically Christian. I've grown up Catholic.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have a lot of like trauma from growing up in a very like homogeneously European Christian town, and also just the memories of like colonization, Like,
Yep.
it's, some people say that's stupid when you say it, but like it's true, Once you realize it, you can't stop thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
But there's that. But then there's other times where I realize like the way how my parents, they are liberation theologists. That's what they follow. And what I'm about to say is like that form of Christian thought has been seen as controversial. Some people see it as actually like the way how Jesus Christ in the past, like he spread his like his teachings through like, through a mixture of like what would be seen now as socialism, Marxism, like communism, right? But more focused on religion, right?
Yeah.
But then some people say socialism, Marxism, communism, wow, they hate Christians. Oh my God, it's the Western Christianity thought that thinks that,
Yep.
And that's why liberation theology was seen as communist garbage by the governments back then, right? And priests that lived in Central America and didn't align themselves with the Americans, because that happened a lot, when they actually saw what was going on to the people, they became liberation theologists. And in El Salvador, there was a priest named Oscar Romero. He preached mainly at, I don't remember if it was the capital or San Miguel, but he preached in one of the big cities in El Salvador, right? And he had some Jesuit liberation theologist friends, and he didn't align with them originally. He was actually with the American government. But it wasn't until one of his closest friends named Rutilio Grande got bombed. He got airstriked in a van with a little altar server boy as they were going to a soccer practice. It wasn't until then when he started preaching liberation theology, and I'm really happy because once that happened, he became the voice. As I was saying in the previous episode, there was an underground radio called Venceremos, We Will Overcome, right? They were playing Nueva Trova, they were playing news updates on the war, but they always played the sermon of Romero. His stuff went originally from like talking about like, please, everyone needs to find peace with each other, to eventually saying like the government, which as we know historically comes from European dominancy, right?
Yep.
Which also comes ironically from Catholic supremacy in a sense, He called them out. He said, this is un-Catholic. You have been preaching, imposing your views on us when in reality you are the ones full of sin, He would say stuff like that. He would say, one of his like most popular things he would say is like, stop the violence, end it now. He would get mad, scream during sermons, I order you, too many people are dying, too many like children of God are dying, right? And the Americans didn't like that, the government didn't like that, and an assassin who was ordered by one of the leaders of the the junta back in those days, his name was Roberto Dawison. That man ordered an assassin to shoot him while he was giving a sermon. And as Romero was the voice of hope, the voice of, he condoned violence, but in a sense he was the voice, one of the big voices of the revolution. His death, some people, I know, one of my professors says that actually is the thing that started the Civil War from going from like a social unrest to the actual war. It gave people the motivation to fight for a cause in a sense, But nowadays, actually Pope Francis, who himself was a Jesuit, actually made him into a saint right now. He's the patron saint of El Salvador. But that story resonated all across Latin America, and eventually it's found its way to this musician, Ruben Blades, who is known for using his lyricism to connect it to social unrest in the United States with problems going on to African Americans and Latinos, and also, especially to things going on in the 1980s in Central America, because he's also Panamanian, right? So he creates this song, which let's play, called El Padre Antonio Simón Aguirre Andrés.
Oh, yeah, I have that song.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's give that a little listen, and then I want to explain some stuff about like the musical connections as well.
selva sin la esperanza de ser obispo. Y entre el calor y entre los mosquitos habló de Cristo. El Padre no funcionaba en el Vaticano, entre papeles y sueños de aire acondicionado. Y fue a un pueblito en medio de la nada a dar su sermón. Cada semana para los que busquen la salvación. El niño Andrés Eloy Pérez tiene 10 años y estudia en la elementaria Simón Bolívar. Todavía no sabe decir el credo correctamente. Le gusta el río, jugar al fútbol y estar ausente. Le han dado el puesto en la iglesia de Monaguillo. A ver si la conexión compone al chiquillo. Y su familia está muy orgullosa porque a su vez se cree.
Yeah, so what we're listening to right now is, like I said, El Padre Antonio. I'm just going to say that. Like, people say that for short. But the lyricism right now, it's kind of like a parallel to the story of both Romero and Rutilio Grande, both of their deaths and the death of an altar server who was there, you know, during the airstrike. They kind of mix two together. So in this story, it's about a priest named Father Antonio, and he had a little altar server named Andres, and they go to church, and Antonio starts speaking for, you know, actually I just said it, he condemned violence, and he wanted everyone to, like, you know, be peaceful, like what would be seen as like good Catholics, right? And Andres, he was always there serving the father, and then eventually they both got murdered. And then, you know, the song keeps on going back, and they always say like sueñan las campanas unos tres, just kind of like calling you back to like telling you who the people are here in the song, right? But eventually during like the solo, there's gonna be some solo parts, and that talks a lot about like, okay, this story is actually about Romero. I'm just using like different names for, you know, the sake of like teaching you, because at the same time, during those times, Romero would also be seen as a controversial figure by some Latinos that were more in favor with the government, right? So it's like, hey, if I tell you it as a different priest, maybe you'll actually like listen and learn, right? But yeah, that's kind of the lyricism I see there. But I always, with Latin American like literature, lyricism, I always see this magical realism, emotional aspect. I was just telling Christian this, like the music, the literature, even the entertainment in Latin America, doesn't matter if it can be politically charged, doesn't matter if it can be the news, doesn't matter if it can be like something sexual too, because for some reason the West loves to like over-sexualize Latinos and black people. But it doesn't matter what it is, it's always going to be focused on emotions, that emotional value you have in something, you know? So these lyrics, they're jam-packed with that emotional value. And then as for the rhythm, as you can hear right now, there's a 6/8 going on. If you're a little music theory nerd right there, right? There we go, yeah. Whenever I hear this, the way how I associate it with, I've been noticing a lot in different salsa songs. When they want to make something more focused on, let's say, like African traditional music, or if they're talking about the jungle, which like stereotypically can be associated with indigenous or African people, right?
Yeah.
They always go back to a 6/8 rhythm. Sometimes I've heard some songs that don't really get the assignment, and I'm gonna say it, and it feels more stereotypical, right?
Yeah.
But when it's music like this, especially from Ruben Blades' music, I feel like he's a white man. He's born of a British family. So his name's actually Ruben Blades, but they mispronounce it all the time.
Yeah.
But when Ruben like plays this music, you can tell he understands that he's using this as an artistic interpretation to, there it is again, to bring you back to the people who are involved in this story, right? And who was involved in this story? Who are the people being oppressed right now? Who's struggling? That would be campesinos, so like peasants, people who are usually indigenous or black. And as I was saying with kind of like the similar paper genocide, these campesinos are of usually mestizo, indigenous, or like mixed African and indigenous like race, you know? And I don't know, whenever I hear this, I know I had this feeling, it's just, this is a song made to connect these people together and understand, like, it makes me angry when I hear this. It makes me sad, and it makes me kind of, like, in a sense, hopeful that there's someone there speaking out for the people. Because I've heard this, I don't know if it was from a Latino musician or a Caribbean musician, but it's like, to be a musician in this global south is to be a politician.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty accurate, honestly.
Yeah.
I remember I was listening to this interview by Buju Banton. He's a reggae artist, and he was talking about his Igbo heritage. So Igbo is a Nigerian tribe, and he was talking about the Moors who you know who, no, not the Moors, the Maroons. You know about the Maroons?
I know a bit about them. Yeah.
So basically, they were people who escaped from slavery, fought rebellions, and went to live in like the mountains in like Jamaica and other islands. I don't remember how many islands they were in, but they mixed directly with the indigenous people there and lived like cohabitated with them.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting because you have like, imagine you're a slave from Nigeria, from Ghana, from the Congo, and you're brought somewhere else and you escape, and the people who are helping you are the people who are also fighting against and trying to live like away from the colonizers who are coming, and you guys create this whole like hybrid community of like, I think majority of them were Igbo. I have to really research the genetics and the tribal stuff, because certain if you read like documents of slave owners and everything, they would write about the Igbo people that they were very rebellious, so they tried to like mix them with other tribes who were not as rebellious or whatever, like depending on the nature of the tribes. But you have these cultures coming to mixing directly with the indigenous there, and it's like you really see a different perspective. At least for me, I saw a different perspective of the indigenous Tainos and just the indigenous culture in general in the Caribbean and like some parts of Latin America. Because if you look at it from the white perspective, you know, they're all aggressive and, you know, they're barbaric and everything. But you have them, they're seeing these slaves, they don't speak the same language, they don't speak, they, you know, and they're still cohabitating and blending their cultures and everything. It like, not even in protest or like against the Spanish and the colonizers there, but all of it like works together, like they understand each other and everything. And it's pretty beautiful. It's pretty interesting when I hear about the Maroons there. But yeah, Buju Banton is reggae artist, and Bob Marley, you know, he had the songs about the Buffalo Soldiers and everything. And yeah, it's a lot of artists there. You can't, since you're as an artist, your status is elevated so high, it just feels like you're doing a disservice to ignore what's going on. Like you have to make at least some nod to it, some reference to it.
What you said actually about the connections between like similar cultures that sometimes have to like, in a sense, work together and connect, right? It reminds me of a quote that my dad would say. Every now and then, because my dad being like an indigenous man from El Salvador, he would take me to like, just for fun, we lived close to some reserves. We'd go to like the powwows, right? And I used to ask him like, Dad, why are we going here? Like, these are fun, but like, why are we here? And he goes to me, he's like, son, the people here are the equivalent of our cousins from the north, you know? He's a proud Pan-Americanist, and I didn't understand that until I got older. And again, even more connected to that, that actually reminds me of this like quote, if that's okay, like this. Yeah. From this book I've been reading called like An African American and Latinx History of the United States. There was this quote from a columnist for the Chicago Defender, and that was like in more like a black rights like newspaper back then, right? Yeah. And he wrote that the people of Latin America ethnologically are very little different from the Afro-American of the country. Yep. They have, I'm going to say indigenous blood, they use a different word. Yeah. They have indigenous blood in their vein, so have we. They have African blood in their veins, so have we. They have European blood in their veins, so have we. It's only a difference in degree. And culturally, the way how we speak, the way how we act, the way how, going down to the way how we act with our fellow like people that can be black or indigenous or mixed, right? there's all these similarities, you know?
It's like permanently intertwined, and that's I'm gonna use the segue to go into Chicano culture. I did a lot of research on this and about the music. So Chicano culture was basically it started in the 50s and the 50s, 40s, 60s, and it was basically like a Mexican rights, Mexican power empowerment movement back then, and they were essentially saying, we don't want the label of Mexican American. You know, we want to have more connection to our indigenous heritage. You know, we don't want to be the mestizos. You know, we want to be connected to this idea of the indigenous cultures in Mexico and everything. And it's very similar to the Black Power movement. And specifically, there was a movement in hip hop. I don't know if you know about the Zulu Nation, if you heard about like the tribe and everything. It's the same similar idea about them reconnecting. It's interesting how all these movements kind of sparked at the same time in the 60s. I should do more research on how that really happened, because all of this stuff is happening really at the same time. And they had all these kind of just not communes, but they were connecting in the cities and communities and kind of teaching each other more about specifically their indigenous heritage, you know, trying to revive the language, trying to use more of their names. And the word Chicano, even originally, it was a classist term, kind of to refer to like poor Mexicans and everything, and they reclaimed that term to refer to, you know, to empower them and everything. And it's interesting when you look at the history of that, and you look at the history of the Black Panthers and the counter Interpol movement, that was used to disrupt them too.
They went over like they went like specifically targeting organizations like the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, and also like Martin Luther King Jr., right? The same thing. And they went to them and they, you know, sowed seeds of distrust between them and tried to emphasize the things that they had different. There was there was some misogyny and homophobia going on like already, like just the seeds of that there. They really emphasized that. They really tried to like zoom into that, had people come in, and the counter Interpol movement is really interesting to hear about, because you realize it's not white people coming in and disrupting, it's white people telling other people who look like them to disrupt the movement. And and it's really interesting when you mirror that to today. It's still going on, the idea of like identity politics, of like, you know, you should listen to me because I'm Black, you should listen to me because I'm Latino, on anything that has to do with Latino and culture and everything. And you see that kind of, you see the idea that you should listen to people's experience who go through those things turn into, since I'm Black, I'm like the go-to for Black culture. Since I'm Latino, I'm the go-to for Latino culture. And you have people who are being fed, you know, government propaganda, going to teach more government propaganda under the guise of I'm Black, I know what's good. You can trust me. They want to have like a face
exactly.
You can trust, and I find that just sometimes like disgusting.
And it was the same thing that happened with them, and it even gets deeper, because the connection with the whole Hispanic identity is still connected to some white Latinos. So you can't really remove them from the equation. The indigenous people, the darker people, you can't really remove them from the equation. So you had white Hispanics in the government. I forget what the government arm was called, but they basically said, we want to call ourselves Hispanic. We don't want to call ourselves Latino or whatever, because
Latino,
they want to
indigenous, Latino, Afro Latino. No, we are just Hispanic, and it's so stupid. You see on the U.S. Census, and now it's like Latin/Hispanic. It's like,
and it's like, man, why would I want to associate with white people? Like that's literally what they're trying to do. They're trying to remove, and they did that specifically to kind of remove the Chicano culture from existence, because they associated them with Black militarism and the Black Panther movement and all of that. It's all the same thing, all intertwined. So I'm gonna play some songs, and this is from specifically the Chicano rap culture that started in the 90s. It started in the West Coast. There wasn't much in the Eastern, because so most of the Mexicans would live in California and all
LA
along
area,
the West.
right?
So there was different Latinas in the East. So there was a different but similar thing going on in the East. So this is I'm gonna play "Smiling Faces" by Conjero. It is.
Check this pedo out, bandit. I got a little story about a smiling face of death. That's right, loco. She did me and all the camaradas wrong. Watch it. When I first met her, she was barren soil. Ese put it down, you know that baby was loyal. It was 5 years back, my homie, just today. She was stirring up some trouble, pedal down my way. Looking all that chaos, something wasn't right. Cause the hyena had a vato and the vato holds her tight. Unacceptable. She made her way to the canton. Looked me in the eyes, it was an obvious disguise. To prove her love, she'll see me shot. Her man's insecure, so he wants to see me drop. And in fact, engraved on her breast, mi placazo who I am, muñeco from the west. Vika set me up to that effect, no doubt. And these signs of uncertainty, wars break out. Undressed on my bed, homie calling out my name. We're both on the calle, so we both got game. Girl, what's the reason for the way you act? Her vato picked the lock and then he came in through the back. So what I did next, brought the story to an end. Crying on the floor with her boyfriend dead.
Smiling faces sometimes.
They don't tell the truth.
Smiling faces tell lies.
They don't tell the truth. I did some time, I gained some pool, had a startup plan, knew exactly what to do, had my contact homie that provided me the fuel, money for my jale and some automatic tools, silent partner that was never mentioned, handle his business, but he did it by extension, camaradas got my back, pedal dance off the top, interactions that I got in control of the block, ingredient X was opposed by the law, but I got him bent to the motherfucking wall, gateway to the top of the world, on the settle that I felt like the Duke of Earl, respects the longitude, but can stand the escalation, different seasons, beyond your estimation, one of my soldados got whacked on location, right there and then there had to be a separation, never what I thought, though I never really trusted, broke me once, when I was busted, disgusted, by his dirty tactics, laid his ass out another dip as blanket.
Smiling faces sometimes.
They don't tell the truth.
Smiling faces tell lies.
Okay, so that was Smiling Faces by Conjeo. He was most of the Chicano rappers were really regional. Like none of them really got, besides I forget who the rapper is. I think it was Little something. But I think it was Lil
Rob?
Yeah, Lil
Lil
Rob.
Rob, neighborhood music guy.
Yeah,
I
so
love Lil Rob.
He was the only one who kind of made like mainstream success.
Yeah.
But the culture and the influence of it like spread all over LA and everything like that. Like you have the baggy clothes, the flannel and everything. Even Cypress Hill, who weren't Mexican specifically.
There was like one Mexican, right?
Yeah, there was like one Mexican, one Puerto Rican, one Cuban.
Yeah.
All of their music is super influenced by that. All of their slang is influenced by that. And it's similar to how like New York slang or LA slang for black people became like slang for a lot of black people in the country, and like kind of a collective black idea, a black identity came up. That's what happened with Chicano culture. Like the Mexican Chicano like idea and identity comes and goes into other Latina like ethnic groups in the States.
I've definitely noticed it even in Canada with some people. Like,
Yep.
Sometimes I wonder if it's some Latinos trying to fit into a stereotype, because they also, I feel like a lot of like white people have kind of in a sense corrupted that view of Chicano culture and turned it more into cholo, gang, street culture. You know how like you got like people turn like the New York City accent to just like the black gangster accent, you know?
Yep.
So sometimes I wonder if a lot of Latino friends are doing that because they're trying to fit into a stereotype, or if it's from some stuff that they've grown up with, you know? Me personally, I have to admit, like, I haven't actually grown up with the Chicano slang, but because my parents, they came straight from El Salvador to Canada, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I see myself saying it because it's just not in a sense of like appropriation, but like the culture, like I surround myself with some Latinos that are from that, and I've like kind of picked that up in a sense, but I try not to use it as much because I don't want to like, in a sense, like impose it.
Yeah,
you know,
that's we definitely have to do a show on that later.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this and talking about this earlier, and it's like in Canada, most of the immigrants here are directly from the country.
Yes, sir.
And have only been here like maybe their second, maybe their third at most.
Yeah.
But you have this like you're living under you're living with a bunch of white people and a bunch of other minorities who their only experience with your culture is through American lenses.
Mm-hmm.
And the American lens is like, you know, Chicanos, Mexicans were in America for hundreds of years. Black people were in America for hundreds of years. So they have enough time to create their identity, but that's not your identity. And your own specific culture, you might have not been there. You know, maybe you're born there really young, or you're second generation. So you're not fully, you know, Jamaican. You're not fully like you have.
You're a third culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're your own thing, and that's beautiful in most of the senses. But sometimes it can be a bit of a struggle.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's really interesting to hear other people, even like some East Asians I know, with the like being second generation Chinese, second generation Korean or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like they have this, like, they're in limbo of, I'm consuming all of this, you know, black media, I'm consuming all this Latino media, I'm consuming all this even like Japanese media or whatever, or like the stereotypical East Asian medium because I like it.
Yeah.
But then people also think that that's me because of that. That's what they're consuming. That's the only thing that's here. So you live in this like weird limbo where you're like, I'm not Black American. So should I talk like that? Should I listen to you know, jazz, rap music? But then, you know, I'm not super Jamaican. Like I don't have the accent.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up with a lot of Jamaican friends. I grew up a lot of like in a Jamaican community, like at church and everything, but they're all older.
Yeah.
So I don't have like friends my age who are Jamaican, or a lot of like, so it's weird. It's a really interesting dynamic. We kind of like tangent off at the end, but that would be a different episode. That's definitely something I want to talk about in the future. But just wrapping up this episode, do you have any other thoughts? We have a couple minutes left.
Well, obviously, thanks for having me on here, and I guess now technically
Yeah,
also thanks for coming on. Yeah, thanks to both of us for just being on the show.
Yeah.
But I've said this during like off the recording. Just actually, it's so fun meeting someone that wants to learn about these connections as well. You know, not just through music, but through politics, through a similar struggle, through arts too. Yeah, and it's just, I feel like especially for people of color, it's imperative to learn more, not just about. We always talk about like the political side. We need to learn about our political history, right? But it's also a good thing to learn about our artistic history, because arts always has been a just symbiotic with specifically indigenous Latino, right? Like Latin, Latino, Latinx, right?
Yeah.
And black culture, you know? It has always been intertwined with the politics, with the sociology like aspect of our people, you know? So in a sense, when people, I've heard family members that are more left-wing, or friends that are like left-wing, they're like, you need to get militant. You need to become more radicalized left. And I agree with that. But you also need to radicalize and decolonize your thought on art.
Yeah,
So,
it's all connected. And I think the more you learn about the shared history, and in some cases, like with Latinos and the African diaspora, it's shared history. And in some cases, it's shared like protest history with like the Chinese and the Black Americans. There's a lot of interconnection and cultural exchange there, especially with like the protests, because they were protesting, not protesting, but fighting against the American influence after the Chinese war, the war in China and everything. And there was a lot of like, there was Bruce Lee who came over and was doing a lot of culture exchange with with the blaxploitation movies. All of that, all of it's connected, and that came post, you know, struggle. Or you have Malcolm X talking about the Palestinian struggle and how it's connected, and
same
you have
with like Che Guevara, Hugo Chavez has done that as well in Latin America.
And it's like you see, even if it's not a direct shared cultural history, the people who are oppressed are always aligning themselves and connecting with other people who are oppressed. It's all connected.
That reminds me of one thing. I just want to say, if you go to any protests nowadays, or if you've seen protests in the past, from the past few years or even the past like few decades, you will hear the lyrics of that song I played before, but in English. People united will never be defeated. Whether it's an actual connection that went cross over, or just people happen to say that, everyone has that connection. All of us like oppressed people have that quote kind of like installed into our minds, that people united will never be defeated.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Okay, so we're going to end this show with another Chicano rap song. This is Dippin' and Rollin' by Mr. Criminal.
All right.
Dippin', rollin', drinkin', smokin'. Dippin', rollin', drinkin', smokin'. I keep my system on blast, liquor in my cup, chronic in my blood, dog, I'm living it up, cause we just dippin', rollin', drinkin', smokin', piss something new for all my riders and bangers. Something for the 07 for my riders and gangsters. Listen up to it. Turn the system full blast, like one up to it. Hit it twice before you pass on the real dog. I gotta give them something they can feel. So I hit them with some heat for when they're out there riding real slow. Candy paint, making scrape in these Cali streets. Throwback, Raider jersey, black loves, khaki streets. I'm blowing up, dog, believe it or not. I'm making this sport slide sick when I'm leaving the spot. I got a lot of beef, so my heat is a Glock. I keep pounds of uncut, what you need's what I got. I represent for my soldados from Cali to Colorado, from Portland down to Miami, New York, back to El Paso. So all my riders, just put your hands up. All my Latinos and Nevados, let me see you stand up. I keep my system on blast, liquor in my cup, chronic in my blood, dog, I'm living it up, cause we just hipping, rolling, drinking, smoking, pistol, holding, pockets. Got the pistol on my side, something heavy in the trunk, Levi's creased up, dog, I'm giving it up for all my riders, bangers, lifers, rollers, locals, gangsters, all my soul. I got a sick fetish to make them dividends stack. I got a sick hunger to represent my side of the tracks. I got a fire burning in me and I cannot relax. So I put it all together and decided to rap. I was a criminal, labeled as a wicked child, making the older homies proud, dropping tracks like look at me now. And I don't stop, homie, and I never will. White wall spinning on my all chrome dating wheels. I'm blowing up, dog, believe what you see. I got another beloved homies that believed in the G. About to throwing up the 1-3 on MTV. Give it a little bit of time, I'm almost there, watch you see. I represent this way of living on the real, it's in my blood. Do it strictly for my riders and my motherfucking thugs. Everywhere I go, every city I hit, they show me love. Palm trees, low riders, and the motherfucking drugs. I keep my system on blast, liquor in my cup, chronic in my blood, dog, I'm living it up. Cause we just hipping, rolling, drinking, smoking, pistol, holding, pockets. Got the pistol on my side, something heavy in the trunk, Levi's creased up, dog, I'm giving it up for all my riders, bangers, lifers, rollers, locals, gangsters, all my soul. So we just dipping and rolling and we just drinking and smoking. I'm giving it up for all my riders that be banging and coasting. I got love for these motherfucking streets, I'm a product. Why you think that every time I flow these streets they get brought up? A lot of my riders got caught up, no longer here by my side. Cause my palabra to you homies, I'm a rep till I die. I keep a 45 plus with the hollow in the chamber. Got these eyes watching over me, I feel them, it's danger. All of my life I only keep another riders and bangers.